Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. This chas of our learning, we should have the base of English immediately. Today we're going to start Mem Gimel Amid Beis, and we're going to start. Do you know how many lines it is from the bottom?
About
15 lines from the bottom. Yeah, the line starts with B'shusay Nechtavim. We'll start from the words right after that. Umigva me'emas gavya. Yeah, we were mentioning that there was an agreement that the ksuba, the agreement of the ksuba already started from the erison, from the betrothal, but the writing of the ksuba would be by the nesuin. And when the father's rights to it would be dependent on the time of the writing of it. So if the girl was already older at the time of the writing, then the ksuba was hers, and if the ksuba was written when the girl was younger, if the actual marriage was when the girl was younger, then that would still be the father's.
So the obligation would begin at the time of the visa.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Maybe a year later.
Right. But the writing of it, at least that's what was coming out from here.
Is this the one? No, it's not. Page 43.
Okay. Now the Gemara asks, "Omigva me'emas gavya." From what point is the father able I don't know if it really has to do specifically with the father. It has to do with from which point is the collection of the ksuba going to take place? In other words, like this: if let's say the husband had property and the property was sold, but there's a lien on the property because there was a ksuba that he had to pay. So from which point does the lien on the property begin? Is it from the time of the erison or is it from the time of the nesuin? So, Amar Rav Huna, we have two opinions here. Rav Huna says, Mana Masayim, either the 100 coins or the 200 coins, Mina erison. That takes place from the betrothal. In other words, there's a basic ksuba, which is either 100 for if she was not a virgin, or 200 if she is a virgin.
Mhm.
So that's an agreement that the husband agrees to pay already from the time of the betrothal. But tesefes is an addition that he adds to the ksuba. It's called tesefes ksuba. That minan nesuin, that he adds only from the time of the actual marriage. That's when he agrees to give that. That's the opinion of Rav Huna. Ravasi says no, it only has to both the basic ksuba and the additional ksuba is only from the time of the actual marriage. The Gemara challenges this. Does Rav Huna really say this? But we have a statement. Let's say she pulls out two ksubas. Now, what's the pshat? She pulls out two ksubas. She only has one husband, of course, right? So how does she pull out two ksubas? He wrote another document. He wrote one. He said, well, let me write another one, just to make it better. Well, one of them was just a very, very basic ksuba. The other one had in it 300. That means it has an extra 100 in there, in addition to the ksuba. In other words, he's telling her that if this marriage doesn't work, or if he passes away, that she's going to get not the basic ksuba, she's going to get an extra 100, and that he does at a later time, in a later document. Amar Rav Huna, they must have had an argument before him, and then he said, "Oh no, here I'm going to write to you even a better ksuba." Well, Amar Rav Huna, Basal Ligvais Masayim gave him his man Rishon. Shalish Meis gave him his man Shein. She has the option of using the first ksuba or the second ksuba. But if she uses the first ksuba, she'll have more properties to claim from because the fella has sold them in the interim. But the only thing is she'll be able to collect less. But if the obligation of the ksuba started later, so she has less properties to claim from, but she does have more money to claim, so then she can do that also. Now, who's saying this? This is Rav Huna that's saying this.
So the ksuba would stipulate property that would be inherited.
Now, the ksuba is sort of like, let's say someone borrows money, okay, and he owns property, and he doesn't pay back the money.
It's collateral.
So at the time that he borrowed the money, he owned the properties. He then sells those properties. The person that the creditors show up, give me the money or let me take something.
Yeah.
Turns out he sold the property. So the creditors go to the buyers of the property, the purchasers, and they take away the property.
Oh, wow.
Because that property had a lien on it. And then the purchaser has to go back to the owner and say, you sold me a property, I need my money back.
Mhm.
But there's a lien that's created on those properties. Now that would only work if he owned those properties at the time when the money was lent, when he borrowed the money. When he borrowed the money, he had to have owned that. That would create the lien on those properties. Now, by the ksuba, it's the same thing. He writes a ksuba to his wife for his wife. If he owns properties at that time, then those properties are
Under his.
go on a lien. There's everything that he owns at the time that he obligates himself goes under that obligation. If he then sells them, so then the wife can theoretically go to them and say, those properties you bought really owed to me. Now, it depends when the ksuba was written. If the ksuba is written earlier, then the properties were still go under that lien. If it's later, then they don't. Because he sold them before right? You can't go back and say, you used to owe this. You used to own this, so now I can take that away. It doesn't work like that. It's only what he has at the time. As part of the lending of the money, or part of the obligation is you ask, like, well, do you have property? Do you have, like, what do you have? The mortgage, right? Okay. The Gemara says like this. So now we have one statement from Rav Huna that there's 2 times for the ksuba. There's the basic ksuba that starts from the erisin. There's the additional ksuba that starts from the nesuin. And now we have a statement from Rav Huna that when there's 2 documents, you can either use the first one or you can use the second one and take the extra. And if Rav Huna is correct, in other words, if it's really so that Rav Huna says that the time of the basic ksuba is from the erisin and the time from the addition on the ksuba, the sefes, is from the nesuin, from the marriage, tigvei masayim is man rishon, umeim is man sheni. Why doesn't it follow the theory that he was setting up beforehand, that it's just divided into 2 parts? The obligation of the basic ksuba, the 100 or 200, took place originally, and the second one would be the extra. So the Gemara challenges back. It says, "Ol taimech." What? Tingevei, chamish meis. Kulam. What do you have?
Tigbei.
You have tigmei. I have a nun in mine. Tingevei. Do you have a nun in there? Oh, isn't that something? I have tough nun gimel beis yud. Could be a mistake. Tingevei.
Well, maybe I'm looking.
Oh, you have a yud there? Tigvei. Yeah, you have a yud. I have a nun. Okay. In certain Aramaics, they throw nuns in. I think it's more in the biblical Aramaic. Like anywhere where you could put a nun, they put the nun in. So I was thinking that was, they threw a nun in here. But okay. Tigvei should say, I guess. Chamish meis kulam. Why doesn't he collect all 500? Why doesn't it work like this? Masayim is man rishon, tlasmeim is man sheni. The first 200 he can collect from the property that he owned from before, right? The earlier documents, and let him collect the 300. Maybe the whole 300 is just the tesefes. Let him collect a total of 500. Why do we saying that it's either or? The Gemara says, well, it must be. Why can't he collect the 500? Kimid like kasav la tzavisi v'isifas la talas meya amasayim. Then hachi kamala. Imisman rishon gavya masayim. Imisman sheni gavya talas meya. Let me read to the top thing, and then we'll see. Hakanami hainu time legavya midlei kasav la isifas la meya amasayim achuli achilta l'shibud kama. Okay. In the ksuba, it says Vitzavi Reb something v'hisifla min delay. And you remember that in the lashon of the ksuba. Vitzavi means, and he so desires. Vitzavi Reb some habachar or some the desire of this person, and to add an additional to the ksuba was this and that. So in this ksuba, in the second ksuba, it didn't say that tzavisi that I desired. Doesn't mean I commanded. It's tzavisi. It's with a vase. It means ritzoni, I think. I wanted, and to add 300 on the 200. It doesn't say that. So therefore, what he's really saying is that he's just rewriting the original ksuba. Okay. Now, if that's the case, so our original question was, according to Rav Huna, why doesn't he collect 200 from the original time and 100 from the later time? Right? If you have a ksuba of 300, why can't he take the 200? So it must be because the fact that he's writing this second ksuba is because he's saying that if you want, you could collect from the first one. Or if you want, you could collect from the second one. I'm not adding 100 onto the 200. So if you're going to collect, use the second one, then if you're going to get the 300, then you have to ignore the first one, the first ksuba that has extra property potentials because the lien was earlier. You can pick which one she wants to get. If you use the second one, then she's being Michael, the first shibud. She's being Michael, huh? Why? I mean, by your starchev, you can't really write. We're going to see soon. We're going to see in a minute. Right.
Here it seems that you're at your roof, but you pay for this. I don't know what goes on with it.
Then it's worthless to
Signed document.
always value with you.
It seemed like saying that creates a coal, and it's true. She was just. I'm saying,
But here, really, we are having the ksuba written.
yes. But this is what
Right.
So it doesn't have to be the same.
We'll go back. We'll see about Chayiv, I think, over here. Amar Ma.
Whatever Naftali just said, I say the same thing.
He said whatever Naftali says, I say the same thing.
Thank you.
Amar Mar. Amar Mar means we're going to go back to discuss. Usually it means discuss something that a Tana taught. So Amar Mar is a little out of place here. It should say Gufa. That's usually what Gufa is when we discuss the Namaira. Amar Mar is when we discuss the Tana. Amar Mar, go back to say what we said. Iboy Bahai Gavya. Iboy Bahai Gavya. Who was saying this? This was Rav Huna. When there were two kesubos. Right? You can use either one. Okay. Lema pliga de Rav Nachman. Let's say that this argues on the statement of Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman says, the interesting thing with that Amar Mar is that it's not an actual quote. It's more of a summary of what Rav Huna said. Maybe that switches why it says Amar Mar. maybe when it just summarizes it or something. Rav Nachman says, Shnei shtaros hayotzim b'zeh chazeh. Two documents about the sale of a field. So let's say Ruvain owns a field and he sells it to Shimon. And there's a document that we have that he sold it to him in Nisan. And there's another document that we have that he sold it to him in Sivan, the same field. Okay. Sounds like one of them is a forgery. So, Bittul Sheni Asarishan. The second one is the effective one, and not the first one.
It came later, so
Right. And
nowadays we don't have two kesubos because we combined the Erisin and
it's really one obligation.
Oh.
Question is, we were discussing when does the obligation start, from the Erisin or from the Nesuin?
Mhm.
And we ended up saying that it really starts from the writing of it starts from the Nesuin. And however, Rav Huna said that there was the obligation of the Mana and Masayim started from the Erisin. That was Rav Huna's statement. Even though the writing of it was going to be later. That's what it looks like, right?
In
That's what
civil,
it seems.
in civil regarding wills, the latest will is the one that's
Right,
looked at. So
right. Problem is with the sale, how does that work?
prior to,
Right,
Here's the issue. Too much of an opportunity to cheat
right.
people who purchase property
In the interim,
in the interim.
yeah. So Bittul Sheni Asarishan. Well, the statement that Rav Huna said that when you have two kesubos, one of them had 200 in it, one of them had 300 in it. Rav Huna gave you the option of using the second one and collecting more. No, granted, you don't have the same option to take the fields from that he owned earlier, but you still have the option of using the second one. So that's what Reb Nachman says, that you use the second document. Bittul Sheni Asarishan. The Gemara says 1 second. Lav miyitmar Allah Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, "Amayda Rav Nachman, the Yosef Badikla L'Teisefes Kasvei, Hachanami Yosef Lamidi." He wasn't really negating the first one. He wasn't nullifying the first document. If he adds one tree in the second document, he says he's selling him a field, and he adds in one tree in the first document says the field, second document says the field plus a certain tree, then he wasn't taking away the first document 100%. He was just adding that tree in the document. That's why he rewrote the document. If that's the case, so then the same thing by the ksuba. When he's redoing the ksuba, then it wouldn't be taking away the first ksuba, because Rav Huna said that if you use the second one, then you have to use the second one. Then you've nullified the first document. But according to this, why? He added an extra 100. He's not nullifying the first document. The first document still exists. The extra 100 is what was added. So actually it comes out that the Rav Huna and Rav Nachman are saying something very different. Because according to Rav Nachman, you're really using both documents.
Yeah.
And according to Rav Huna, you've nullified the first document if you decide to use the second one. Okay. So that attempt to say, well, I'm not sure if it's saying, is it saying that they're agreeing at the end or they're not agreeing at the end? What does your Gemara say? What's the conclusion of that? That Rav Huna and Rav Nachman agree or they don't agree?
That's the logic of Rav Nachman's rulings in the second deed, which is nothing for previous one can have no purpose other than to nullify the first.
And therefore, that's arguing on Rav Huna?
Accordingly, we presume that Rav Nachman did not issue his result. is ruling in a case in which the first deed transfers failed to a sale and the second would be a gift.
Oh, one second. No, you're ahead.
Whole big
You're ahead.
story.
You're ahead. You're ahead of him. Okay, whatever. Let me take a look at yours.
Yeah.
What's the
This one. Whenever I'm sure. Yeah. No one is.
Yeah, or something.
I'm not sure I'm not sure. I have one question, this Gemara, what's happening? I'm not sure. The Gemara concludes that the Gemara on the top said, Achuli achilte l'shibud kama. That she forgoes the first obligation that her husband made of the 200. Now, I don't know if that means that, it can't mean that she really forgoes that, because the Rav Huna says that if she wants, she can use that. It can't be that it means that if she uses the second one, then she forgoes the first one. She can't use both of them.
She has a choice.
She has a choice. That's what I mean, that she has a choice. But if she uses the second one, then the earlier one is
Second
batal.
one included this, she said that's-
Right.
So the question really is if she uses the second one, is a data problem with someone who, with any business
Right.
dealing in the interim. That's what the issue
Right.
is.
Right. So now when we introduced Rav Nachman says clearly, Bittel Sheni Asarishan, the second one nullifies the first one. According to Rav Huna, you could have used either one. So then Rav Nachman says that it's not really nullifying it. Oh, so then they can agree. It's not nullifying it because he added. That's how the Gemara is working. We're saying that because Rav Nachman is adding, because according to Rav Nachman, even if you add one palm tree, then you didn't nullify the first one. You can still use the first one if you want. You're just adding. So too by the ksuba, you can use either one. It was just adding the extra one in the extra 100 in the second document. Okay. So the conclusion over here is that Rav Nachman and Rav Huna can agree that the first document could still be usable. Gufa, Amar Rav Nachman, Shtei shtares hayotzim b'zeh achar zeh, bittul sheni asarishan. If you have two documents saying the same thing, but just one was written later, 3 months later. So the second document nullifies the first one if there's nothing added in the second document that the first one didn't have. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, Rav Nachman would agree that it doesn't negate the first one if there was an added tree in the second document. Okay, now the Gemara says Pshita, it would be obvious that if Rishon b'mecher v'sheni b'matana, that it also doesn't negate it. If the first one was a sale, first document says that the property was sold. The second document says that the property was gifted. So it's not negating the first document. It's just liyapis koichu de kasavla, shemdina de bar metzra. The problem over here is that he sold the property to an outsider when his neighbor wanted that property. So it's called bar metzra, who has the first choice of buying that property, and he didn't offer it to him. He went to someone outside. That's going to be a problem over here because the bar mitzvah can actually take the property away from the purchaser and say that I had the first rights to buy that.
Because of a lien.
It's not really a lien.
Well,
Bar mitzvah is just a neighbor.
If
there's-
on the property, you have to pay the other guy.
Yeah, if you have a property, I have a property here, and there's a property in the middle, and that for you, this property is really valuable because when you plow your field, you can just double to make it. So this is really ideal rather than buying another property out there. So, and I sold it to someone out there. So that wasn't fair of me to do that. So it wasn't not fair. It wasn't
bummer.
What is the pasuk the Gemara says?
It could be-
Vasisa Yasher V'Atayv. It wasn't Yosher. I'm supposed to offer it to you. Now I didn't. So I gave it to someone. I sold it to someone else. So what I did now was I gave him a document that it was gifted
So
to him.
originally that was yours?
Originally, this field was mine. Now I wrote a document for him that I gifted it to him. So when you try to take him to court, is to say that you should have bought it first. The guy pulls out the document, says, "You didn't buy it. It was a gift. He gave it to me as a gift." And the rule of bar mitzvah doesn't apply if it's a gift.
Jeff, when you bought his nephew used to him that did the guy come to you and ask you if you want to buy it or you want to? Also wasn't, so there was.
So there was no one in there. He just put his stuff in. Uh-huh. Oh yeah. Yeah. Right. You just take. You just take the whole 175th. Yerushalayim. Okay. B'kolshkein rishon b'matana v'sheni b'mecher. What would happen if the first one was a matana and the second one was a mecher? Why? What would that do? Damrinan mishum dina de bal chayiv who the kasav came. He gave it to me as a gift. Oh, gave it to me as a gift. The problem with the gift is that it's not a real gift because he owed money to someone. And the guy that the creditor is going to show up, he's going to end up taking away that property. So you can't just give away your property when you owe money to me. I'm going to come that you owed money. That's a lien on for the debt that you have. He's going to take it away. And then he's going to be left with nothing. So the guy, to make his gift better, he writes him a document of sale, which means that when the creditor comes and takes away the property, he can go back to him and say, at least give me the money of the property. So in other words, the gift also has a value to it if it gets taken away, monetary value that he gets in exchange for the property. At least he'll get the money value, right? So the sale document adds something to the gift document. The gift document means the creditor takes it away and he's left with nothing. And the sale document says that he can go back to the one that gifted it to him and say, sold it to him, and say, okay, they took the property, give me the money. But what happens, the real issue here is that if they're both a regular sale, the documents, or they're both gift documents, then the second document nullifies the first one. That's what we learned from Reb Nachman. My timer. What's the reason for this? What's really happening here? So Rafram says, there's a machlekes. Eimar oidi oidilei. The owner of the document says the first document was a forgery. That's what he's really saying by getting the second document. First document wasn't valid.
Is that what that phrase means?
It means he is admitting. Is admitting. Yeah. Ravacha Amar Eimar Achuli Achli L'Shibude, that he was Michael, the lien on the properties from the earlier time. My binaya, what's the difference between these two opinions? Why the second document is being used and not the first one? Well, it could be nayu sadi. First difference is if it's a forgery. Now, what does a forgery mean? Forgery in this context means that the signatures were actually done, were actually real signatures. Only thing is the document was not true. they signed on a document that wasn't really true. They didn't check out what they were signing to or whatever. So two witnesses show up. Reuben and Shimon are signing. I don't know what the signatures. Issachar and Zevulun are signing on the sale between Reuben and Shimon. That never took place. If that's the case, the sale never took place. So then the witnesses are liars. So this puts makes a problem with the witnesses. Okay, that's the first thing. According to Rafram, it's a forgery. According to Ravacha, there's no problem. They didn't do anything wrong. He was just Michael the earlier lien. The Shlumi Peri. Shlumi Peri should he have to pay for the fruits of that he ate in between the first time and the second time? According to Rafram, he didn't own it then. It was a forgery. He only got it later. So he has to pay for the fruits that he ate. He was eating that, it wasn't really his. And then the last case, a lataska. Taska means there's a tax that he has to pay. According to Rafram, he doesn't have to pay it. According to Ravacha, he does have to pay it, the purchaser. According to Rafram, he doesn't have to pay it because he never owned the field then. And according to Ravacha, he did own the field. He was just Michael, the property tax, right? What does it mean, a chuliachla shibude? Chuliachla shibude is usually there's a shibud that goes to the person that lends money. He's the purchaser of the property. I guess what it means is that if someone is going to take away the property from him from that time, it's a strange case. It's not the regular case. Usually, if I sell a field and I owed money at that time, I had really owed money, so the creditor can come and take the field because I sold it and I really had a lien on it. Okay. Over here, what happened is I sell a field and then I make a document 3 months later about it. What about the first document of that? Somehow I'm being Michael the shibud that's on that field. Now, what does it mean I'm being Michael the shibud? I'm being Michael a lien. I'm not the one that borrowed. I'm not the creditor. Maybe what it means is that if someone takes it away from me, I'm not sure what shibud could be there. What does it say in here? Let me look at this. The recipient forgave him his lien from the date of the first document. Oh, so consequently, if the seller's creditors collect this field as a payment for the debt owed to them, which necessitates the seller reimbursing the buyer for the purchase price of the field, the buyer has a lien only on property owned by the seller from the time of the second document. Yeah, that is a little more complicated than a regular case. What happened is when someone comes and takes away, the creditor comes and takes away the field that I bought. So I go back and I say, well, give me the money. He says, I don't have money. They say, okay, so let me take one of the properties. So which property do you want to take? I sold the other properties also. So I go to the purchasers of those properties to take because of my property that I bought. So when I go to the purchasers of those properties, I was Michael, the earlier purchasers of the properties, and I only will collect from the purchasers that owned it. I will be Michael, the purchasers that purchased it earlier, as if that was purchased before my sale. And I'll collect only from the ones that purchases after the second document. You follow?
No.
Here's the field that I bought. Okay. This is another field. And this is another field. Yeah. Okay, so now,
With the woman?
no, I'm not, now it's just a regular sale of a field. I bought this field and I have two documents on this field. One was in Nissan and one is in Sivan. All right, so comes along a creditor and says, the guy that you bought it from, Ruvain, he owed me money. I'm taking that field. That field belongs to me. Okay, so now I go back to Ruvain. I say, I lost the field. Someone came and took I need my money back. He says, I don't have any money. I said, okay, so give me one of your other fields. He says, I also sold them. Okay, so now I go to the sellers, not to the sellers. I go to the buyers of these two other fields here. Well, one of them was sold in Nissan or Iyar, and one of them was sold in Sivan or Tammuz. So the one that was sold in Nissan or Iyar, I was Michael by writing the second document of sale, and I'm my lien on Ruvain's other properties, in case my property gets taken away, is really starting in Sivan by the second document.
He's not the-
He is to me. I'm the creditor.
Forgiving and reducing the value of the
Of the-
creditor house. I think it-
By writing the second document. No, I'm the one that wrote the second document. I'm being nice to the guy that sold it
you're
to
the
me.
lender.
In this case, I would be considered the lender, even though I'm the I bought a field, but I'm like the lender. I'm the creditor now that's taking away. You follow?
You are the lender? or you're the-
No, usually when there's a lien, we're dealing with a lender that's taking away a property, right? Here, I'm a purchaser and I'm compared to a lender. Because the field was taken away from me, now I'm going to get my money back and I'm getting it from a field. Okay. So that was Ravacha's view.
Title search.
Right. Tashima, my Havila the Ksuba. I'm sorry, what happened with the Ksuba? The Ksuba, we had a discussion before. When does it start? When does the lien of the Ksuba start? When does the obligation begin? So Tashima, come and listen. Rav Huna Amar Shmuel Mishum Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon. Really? Is that what it's? Is that how you have it spelled out? Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon.
Yeah, Rebel was,
Yeah, Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon. It goes back to the Tanaim. Mana Masai Min Eirison, V'Teisefes Min Anesuin. Exactly the way Rav Huna taught it. Exactly the way Rav Asi taught it. We have a brisa here. The Hilchas, the halacha is Echad Zev Echad Zem Min Anesuin. Then we're going to paskin like the Chachamim, that the lien, the obligation of the ksuba starts from the Nesuin, from the marriage. Okay. New Mishnah. Hagiyaris Sheniskaira Bita Ima. If a Giyaris, a woman converts together with her daughter, Vizinsa, and the daughter was Mizana. She must have been betrothed. Of course, or else it's not considered snus. It's just so. Yeah, you have a mother and daughter that converted her, but the girl is young, and when she's betrothed, she ends up having relations with a foreign man, even though she's betrothed to someone else.
This was before or after she?
After the conversion. After the conversion.
she's still a minor.
She's still a minor. Is she still a minor? No, she's 12 years old. She's 12. She's not a minor. Harezu bechenek. Usually it's stoning. That's the punishment. But over here it's chenek.
Lovely.
Right. Ein la pesach beisa'av. Now the way it was done, the stoning was at the father's house, because she embarrassed the father's house. She doesn't have a father because she's a convert. V'loi meyasela. And also another point over here is that if the husband says that he found that she wasn't a virgin, so the rule is that if witnesses come and say that they find that they have the sheet that has the blood on it, the husband's a liar. So the husband has to pay 100 coins to her father. She doesn't have the father. She doesn't have the 100 coins either. But really, it's because be Yisrael. It's not considered from the congregation of Israel.
Why isn't it not the Messiah? It turns out she was-
No, it's much more than the kesubos. This is it's Mea Sela. It comes out to like four. I think it's like four. It's 400.
Oh,
So yeah, it's a fine that because what he did to this girl that he embarrassed her. Let's say the mother converts during pregnancy. So she was born Jewish, but she wasn't conceived Jewish. Then that's a different story. Then Harezu Beskila, Pesach Pesach, she still doesn't have a father, so the stoning wouldn't be done at the father's house. She also doesn't get the 100 coins if there would be a case of a Mitzi Shemra where the husband does that. Let's say her mother's a convert, but so what? She was born Jewish, conceived and born Jewish. That's a regular Jewish girl. All the halachas apply. Yesh la'av ve'ein la pesach beisav. Yesh la pesach beisav ve'ein la'av. Let's say she doesn't have a house. Father doesn't have a house, so you can't do that. Nevertheless, a reza beskila. Leinemer pesach beisav el mitzvah. The father's house is just the way that the stoning was done, that it was done at the entrance to the father's house. That was just a mitzvah to do that, but it's not ma'akev. It doesn't change any of the other halachas if he doesn't have a house. We know immediately, where do we know this concept of hirasa shalei b'kedusha, leidasa b'kedusha, the conception, the birth? Where do we know that that's only that the stoning only takes place if it would be birth? If the birth was after the conversion. The Makra umesa. Pasuk says umesa. It says that all the people of the city stone her with stones, and she dies. Okay, so they stone her. Why does it have to say she dies? The rabbis is coming to include hirasa shlei b'kedusha v'leidasa b'kedusha. Even if she wasn't conceived Jewish, the same law would apply. Gemara says, "Ihachi milke nami nilke, umeya sela nami l'shalim." Yeah, what's the case of the malchus here that we're bringing this in? I didn't notice that there was a malchus. Let me look at your Gemara again. Oh, milke nami nilke is talking about the Mitzi Shemra. The husband that gives her the bad name should get malchus, which that was the rule, and also you should have to pay the 100 sela. Let me leave it right here for a second, because what does that have to do with the pasuk of Umesa? Oh, if the woman is considered a regular Jewish woman because of the pasuk Umesa, then that halacha should apply. So the Amar Kra v'Mesa l'misa nisrabsa v'leila knas. No, it says only that she's only considered 100% amongst the Jewish congregation regarding the death penalty, but not regarding the fine, the penalty of a Mitzi Shemra. How do you know it's talking about a girl that was conceived before the conversion, and then the conversion takes place during pregnancy? Like, where did you get that from? There's nothing that implied that from the word umesa. Maybe it's really referring to someone that was just coming from the mother was a convert, and it's telling us that the girl is a regular Jewish girl. It says Ahi Yisrael Malaisi. I don't need a pasuk for that. That would be a regular something that we would understand. Now the Gemara asks another question. Maybe it's coming to tell me even if her conversion was after the birth. So Gemara says, "Can be Yisrael Maya Hanile." Then what do I need the phrase that says Yisrael? That would be after the birth. Okay. Okay, let's leave it over here. I'm gonna be Hanina. Okay. Hey, have a good Shabbos, everyone. Have a good day.